All right. Let's see if I've got some sound. I do. We'll go ahead and get started, and I'm sure we'll have a few join us as we come down to the semester. If you're here, that's okay. You know what's ahead of you. What I'm going to do today is talk about the remainder of the course, and we've come into that part where a lot of this is independent study, a lot of work that you'll be doing, a big project types of assignments, as well as we'll talk about the final exam and how those things are structured. In my courses, I usually come to a point, I think we're either at week 11 or 12, where I go ahead and I walk you and I create some opportunities for you to work completely independently. This is important for you to master for the simple reason when you go to work, folks are going to say, here's a project, get it done, come back and see me at X date. So that's what we're going to be working on. Of course, today is the 12th of August, April, yikes. And we're moving into that period. Now, just to run through just some of the housework, we have a couple of things there. We have three things are due. First of all, XLS 11, which we should have already done, is due today. Then exam 1, part 1, that is an objective exam, excuse me. And typically, it's going to look a lot like what you saw in exam number 1, part 1. Then exam part 2, which has a hands-on part, okay? And make sure I'm recording on here. And I've got a mouse that's working, this is weird. Okay, hang on a sec. I'm going to have to reset my mouse, I think. I get to do this periodically, I assume. Okay, good. Now, we are, this exam part 2, as I mentioned, is typically, it's going to be a hands-on. I have instructions for you here, okay? And you can download that document, all right? And this exam 2, part 2 is drawn from a problem where we did two cases, one where we did some work with linear regression, and then another where we did some work with lookup tables. So you'll want to go back and take a look at those. Now, just to make sure that I refresh everybody's memory and kind of keep them on an even keel, I've provided 2 examples for you, a screencast for dealing with the problem. Here's one, screencast 1 and screencast 2. And then, of course, this is where you upload your work. So hopefully you've been working on this and getting it done. Now, that being said, let's talk about where we go from here. At this point in time, all right, you're moving into the point where you're going to have some projects to do and then getting ready for the final. So here's how I structure things, all right? Next week, you've got 2 Excel cases due, which you've already should have uploaded those. They're already done, okay? And then I have a resource for you, Teradata University Network. No, I decided not to use it this time. But I do have a text file with some links to some examples of interactive business intelligence, dashboards or agents, if you will. Okay, so there's work. You've already done that work. So you say, is this a week for me that you call a flex time week? Absolutely, positively, okay? And so I want you to have that time to do so. Now, on week 12, there's no class meeting. It's a flex time, and access cases 1, 2, 3, and 4 due. Now, when I say there's no class meeting, here's what I mean. I will create, okay? I'll handle this like a virtual office hours, except it will be just for your section of this course, and I'll be here during the class time to answer questions. Now, obviously, if you have other questions, you can always email me and I will try to respond to them. I also always make sure that you know exactly what my office hours are, okay? So if you have questions, you can come by and I can try to help you. But this is an opportunity for you to have a little pressure off, and in other words, to spend what time you might in class working on these assignments that are coming up. Then and here's what's coming for you to do. First of all, and let me say this, a paper is a big word. What I want you to do is here's what I'd like you to do. Choose a Microsoft Excel function, nothing too rudimentary, okay? You can even use a function that we used in one of the cases, in the Excel cases. I'm fine with that. Use something that makes sense. So if you're, if you're a finance major, you might want to use NPV or whatever. Now, what do I want you to do? I want you to tell me why you chose the function. I want you to show me how it works, okay? And that could be in one of three ways, all right? One could be you upload an Excel file with notes, okay? You insert some text, you insert a text box or text boxes that tell me and that show me that you understand how the thing works, okay? The second way would be to give me a Word doc, all right? And either use a print screen or just simply copy and embed your Excel file with some narrative, okay? The third would be to take your Excel file and bury it into a PowerPoint. I want 3 or 4 pages. I'd like to see one reference. One I think typically would be, Microsoft Office offers help and assistance. If you choose a function in Excel, you can click and help on this function, and so there's a resource there for you as well. And again, I'm fine if you use something from one of our cases, all right? But don't ask me, can I do the sum? No. The if function, I'm a little iffy about that. That's a play on words. But if you talk about conditional, if you're talking about conditional statements, I'm on board with that. Okay. So don't overthink this thing. That's all I can say. If you go into the syllabus, you're going to see, and I make a determination on how formal I choose to do something or not. Okay. So it just depends upon on how I intend to handle something. Now, let's go on down to the next thing. And we have another project for you, okay? And again, those 5 and 6, those cases for access, you should have them already done, okay? And now, the spatial analysis exercise. Most of the time, if it's not right there in the prompt, it's going to be in one of two places. It's going to be in the files, or it's going to be up here in this welcome menu. So let's start with the files, okay? I'll take a gander over there. Okay. And I have just a simple series of steps I'm going to have you follow through using some open sources and do some mapping. Now I think the instructions are over here, and I'm going to click spatial. Okay, and there you are. Here's the instructions, and as you can see, I'm just going to walk you through a series of steps. You're going to using Esri, using their Tapestry, and then using Google Maps and Google Open Maps, and just doing some analysis of a retail location. Okay. And we may have to download that because it may just take its time forever to render. So I've got the instructions there for you. I'm going to download it here so you can take a look, okay, and not mess with waiting on that. Here it is, okay, and I give you a retail location in Oklahoma City, and then I just ask you to go step by step by step, and that's all. Why am I doing this? Well, first of all, I think it's good for you to get some experience doing some spatial analysis using some of these tools like Google Earth, Google Street Map, etc., and kind of combine them all together, as well as Esri Tapestry, excuse me, and do some zooming in, zooming out, that type of thing, and just get comfortable with it. All right. If you're a marketing student, you really ought to cue in on this, because so much of what's happening now in marketing is the use of spatial analysis, because we have people who are computing, so they're carrying devices around. We have a software that will track the heat signature of a phone throughout a retail establishment to see the patterns that people follow when they buy, etc. You've been out to a restaurant, you've checked in, you've been to a restaurant or somewhere, and you've given a review. So I wanted to introduce you to some of these open source tools or publicly available tools that can give you a good start, or maybe whet your appetite for using it. So that one's going to be due. Okay. We'll go back over here. That was in the files section. And I'll just close this jewel. So if you don't find it over there, you're probably going to find it, if it's not over in the files section, it may be over here in the supplemental, in this welcome section with all of this stuff I've got over here. Okay. And I've just kind of kept it as a repository. And here's some resources on the exams. Now, let's look at another piece of this. Okay. And now, and let me say this, next Tuesday, I will probably go through this again, short order, and then just sit and wait. And if folks beam in and they have questions, I can try to answer their questions. So I will handle these as like I'm just here if you got questions. What I've done in the past before we had Canvas is I'd give my students these kinds of projects, and I'd be at my office over there, and people would stop by and answer questions, whatever's going on. Okay? So you could, if you're remote and you need to use this to facilitate a question or whatever, fine. If you stop by the office, fine. If you send me an email, fine. But stay on top of these and use the opportunity to work ahead. That's what I'm really trying to do. Okay, is to give you that chance to work ahead. So if you've got another class that's busting your chops, you need to fight your way through to survive, this may be a good chance for you to do it. So you've got the, I think I have this here. Yeah, I had that here as well. I'm going to go down to the final exam, because we've talked about the spatial analysis exercise. 5 and 6, you should have uploaded those and done those already. Now you start to understand, well, why is he doing all this stuff ahead? I was trying to front load things for us. Now, here's my final exam schedule for the spring. This course, the final exam, is from 8 o'clock in the morning on May the 16th to 10 o'clock. Okay? Now, there's, as you would expect, I have 2 parts to the final. One is more of a hands-on part. The other is objective tests. Okay? Let's talk about that. Now, I have part 1, okay, is due at the start, okay, of the final exam period. And I have 8 a.m. Central Time, 5/17/18. I want to check that for just a minute, because that may not be correct. I think it's either the 16th or 17th. Let me pop down there. It's the, yeah, it's the 17th. Because it's that Thursday morning, the 17th. Well, let me go back here. I apologize. Pull the schedule up here. Oh. All right. Be down here. So part 1 is due at the start of the final exam period. And here you go. Okay, that's management. Okay, and you guys are A, and you're Thursday the 17th of May from 8 a.m. Till 10 a.m. Now I have data admin, which is a night class. Its final exam period is 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Thursday night. And of course, graduation is Friday, okay? So part one is due at the start of the final exam period, and spend a little bit of time talking about that. All right. Now, first thing I want you to know, and I'll reiterate this again. I'll repeat it. When I have a screencast of instructions for the final exam part one. Where you see Moodle, think Canvas. Okay. Okay. So now that's the first piece. Now part one, which is due at the start of your final exam period, okay, has two parts. Part one has a kind of like a part A and part B. One of them you'll upload a Microsoft Access file, okay, and another you'll do a Microsoft Excel file, okay. And I've got those there for you to do and instructions. Now, and it says see the instructions. So I'm going to take you to the instructions right now, okay, and we'll do that. Now, let me stop for a minute before we do that. Parts 2, 3, and 4 are quizzes. They're 40 minutes each, which equals 120 minutes, which equals the 2 hours for your final exam. Let me encourage you. There's two things I probably would not do. I probably would not try to do all three of them in the 2 hours, because at that point it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and you've probably had a beat down throughout the week with all your other finals. You may not be at your best. Of course, the advantage is you've had all week to study for it. It's open book, open note, okay? But if you put yourself under the pressure of those 40 minutes for those 3 exams, it may be a bit much. So I would suggest picking them off one at a time. That's what I would do, okay? Now, because they're due no later than the end of the final exam period. So if you do them early, you say, could I do all this early? I have many students who do, yes. And that's why I give you this flex time, okay, to do so. Now, let's go up and talk about what's in the final exam part one. And to do that, we're going to need to go over to the supplemental website, okay? And there's a link to it. And we're going to go over and we're going to find a file, and it's called How Do We Fix an App Like That? Okay, and that's the data set. Now, let me pop back over to the files. All right, and we're going to click on that. And part one. No wonder. I'm just going to do that through the thing and find it. All righty. All right. Okay. I may have given you. Yeah. Just final. Thank you. There you go. The final exam part one materials. There's a zip code that final exam part one. There are the materials, zip file, and let's open that. Well, no, I don't have that for you there. Here's final exam part one. Here's the instructions for that. Okay. Now, here's what you're going to do. And I'll go back over this Tuesday so everybody's on top of it. You're going to go through, all right? You'll go through, you'll go over to the supplemental website. That's where I just showed you that website, and you find that up there in the welcome module. There's a CSV file, a comma separated value file called How Do We Fix an App Like That? That's the data set, okay? It's got 285 customer records, customer reviews. Now, I have a link here for you if you want to become familiar a little bit with the app and to put it into context. Now, I'm going to have you do a little bit of data wrangling, okay? And we're going to, and they have a resource here for you if you choose to look at it about what we call sentiment analysis. And this is where we basically go through and find words, okay, that indicate a sentiment or an evaluation of an app or a product or anything. Now, I'm going to ask you to create an Access database and name it as, you know, I have so many people who name it Harmon Keith Final Part 1, your name first and last, then Final Part 1. So create an Access database, which means if you don't have access at home, you're going to need to come here and do this part. All right. Don't send me something from Apple that I can't use or open. All right. Don't try to use anything except Access. So you'll need to come to the lab to do this piece. All right. Now open the CSV file. All right, and convert it to a regular Microsoft Excel file. And you'll do the save as, and you'll convert it. And then you're going to import that Excel file into your database. We've done some imports and exports, so that shouldn't be anything. If you've been watching the recordings, that shouldn't be anything that intimidates you. After you import the file, okay, I'm going to ask you to change the properties of 2 fields so you can run queries and reports. We did this probably almost on every case, Access case, where we'd take some data in Access and we'd export it and play around with it, or we'd take data. I think on one we took some data, we downloaded and put it into Access and imported it back, pasted it into Excel, excuse me, and then we threw it back into Access. Okay, so after you've imported that file, you need to change it to the fields so we can run queries and generate reports. And all I'm going to tell you is this: when I'm talking about here, number 7, you're going to have some things that are saved as text that may need to be saved as numbers. Okay, and we've talked about building tables. We've talked about the format for the data that we put in the table, and we've talked about the fact that if I have a field or a column where I have numbers, but they're handled like text, I can't do anything with them mathematically. So that's one thing that you may run into. Now, I'm going to ask you to create a report, and we've done this where we've run a query, okay, and then generate a report that tells me how many times the app received a rating of 5, okay, by version of app, and how many times the app received a rating of 1 by version of app. So we have some different versions of that application, okay? So I'm going to ask you to run a query that does that, and that's number 8. So, and as I say, the report should be named Task 8. And the report should indicate the average rating per version of app. Now, this will tell you right off the bat, when you look at this last sentence, you say, oh, okay, now I see why the rating, okay, needs to be handled like a number. Exactly, okay? Now, I'm going to ask you to create a report that tells me how many times per version, per date, the title contained the word excellent. And the query developed in the report should be named Task 9. Sort the data by the most current date to the least current date. Okay? And so we've done that type of thing. We've generated queries and generated reports. Then I'll walk you down to Task 10. Create a report that tells me how many times per version, per date, the review contained a phrase like do not buy. Okay? And that's Task 10. So what I'm having you do, okay, is we did a little query and we did some sorting on the basis of the ratings. And now I'm having you do some searches, okay, to find that, to find a particular word. And we've done some of this. So what you'll want to do, again, one of the reasons I've said, okay, upload this for task for Access Case 6, or upload this for Access Case 3, is so that if you get stuck, you can go back and find an example where you've done it. So, we're not going to be doing anything that we haven't done already in the cases. All right. Then I ask you to repeat repeat step 11, but use the we're doing some data mining basically, but it's also called sentiment analysis because we're getting people's feelings based upon what they say about this app. Easy to use. Repeat task 12 and mining to the and then limit your mind to the phrase convenient. Okay, and then now here's the next thing is, okay, you had that Microsoft Excel file. This is the last thing. It's all you have it. You'd imported it, but it's still over there. And again, you'll want to have this stuff up on your desktop. And I'm going to ask you to create a new worksheet called Task 13. And I'm going to ask you to depict the rating per version by quarter for April, May, and June. And I'm asking you to limit the analysis of ratings to those that were the highest and those that were at the lowest. Okay? Now, there are a number of ways you could do this. And I'm going to throw you a big hint. Based upon here, you may want to think about maybe, just maybe doing a pivot table. But you could do some charting with this as well. You might use some conditional formatting. There are a number of ways you can get at this. The thing is, I'll look at your file and see if you achieve the objective, okay? When you've done all those tasks, upload your Access file and your Excel file, and you upload it at Canvas. Now, I'll go back through this on Tuesday, okay? And that's why, as you see, I've said, okay, I'm giving you these times, all right, to work on this. And and as I said, okay, on class days, I'll come over, and on class days and times. And now Tuesday, I'll go back over what I'm doing today because I know there will be people who won't listen. And then on Thursday, it'll be the same story, okay? And I'll be here, and I'll be more in a mode of if you have a question, you can beam in, and I'll take your question or try to help out, okay? And I'll do that right up to the point where we hit the finals week. So that's pretty much where we are at this point in the course. Now, I want to also make sure, don't leave any points on the table if we did an access case and for some reason you didn't upload it. That's why I have all of those over there for you to upload so you can get the credit for them, okay? And again, the final exam, part 1, part 2, I wouldn't try to do part 2 all that morning. You do not have to be here to do part 2 or part 1 for that matter. You can be remote. However, if you're working the morning of the final exam period, okay, and you're remote and something happens, that's unfortunate. That's why I would say your best bet would be to use the system here, okay, the lab, or if you can get on, or if you have Wi-Fi at your room or over at the library, whatever, and take the exams here. Those part 1, if you wait to the last minute and you're working remote and there's a problem, you know, I don't have any way to help you out. So if you're on the OBU system, you're going to be okay. Did you have a question? Anybody here that's on have a question? Oh, there is just me. I have no questions. So what I'm going to do now is I'll be here and I'll wait if anybody shows up and they have any questions. But you have the recording. Probably what I'm going to do is shut this down because I've explained what's here, and if somebody has a question, they can always you can always get a hold of me. And it's 1 o'clock, so there's nothing more I'm going to do in 45. I'll probably just take the computer to my office and finish over there and sit and wait. Okay? So you're free to go unless you want to stay in the lab and work. But I'll be in my office. Please, everybody, when I send you an email and when I post office hours over in the announcements, please pay attention to them. This time of year, let me explain something real quickly. This time of year, I'm on committees. We have junior faculty. We evaluate, and so I get pulled in a lot of different directions with stuff. And there will be some times when I just simply have to rearrange things. I've been doing some of that the past couple of weeks. I don't think I'll have to next week, but I never know. So pay close attention to if I say, okay, here, especially my physical office hours. You can reach me through email. I have virtual office hours. My physical office hours also, but again, it gets sketchy at this time of year. And I've just learned, I can get pulled off into a meeting, or I can get a surprise meeting I'm supposed to go to, or as we schedule junior faculty for evaluation, whatever. I don't have that much control of my time. Okay? All righty. Well, I'm going to stay on here, and I'll be here till 1:40. Let's see, we go from 12:30 to 1:45. So I'll stay until 1:45, and then I'll bug out. Okay? Or what I've got some work to do, so I probably will just simply shut this off, and if somebody has something they want to ask me, they can get a hold of me. Okay? All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead, and I'm going to stop the sharing, and I'm going to stop the recording.